Okay. Um, all right. So, hello, all. Welcome, and thank you for joining us for Elders Climate Action July National Call. I'm Roger Luckman, volunteer with Elders Climate Action on our coordinating council. For those of you who are new to Elders Climate Action, we are great aunts, great uncles, grandparents, and everyday folks determined to leave a livable planet for future generations and all life on Earth. At ECA, we are elder-centered and volunteer-driven, seeking to inform, inspire, engage, and encourage older generations to take action on the climate crisis at the local, state, and national levels. Our guest speaker tonight is Greg Katz. Greg is a widely recognized leader in the clean energy, green building, green city, and decarbonization movements. He's the founder and CEO of the Smart Surfaces Coalition. The coalition is committed to the rapid, cost-effective global adoption of smart surfaces to enable cities to decrease urban heat, save billions of dollars, reduce flooding and mold risk, and strengthen urban livability, resilience, and equality. It's quite an agenda. Smart surfaces, for those of you who are not that familiar with them, include reflective, cool roofs, pavements, porous and permeable pavements, green roofs, and solar PV and trees. The Smart Surfaces Coalition is currently partnering with 10 cities across the U.S. to facilitate the adoption of smart surfaces. Greg also manages the expansion of the coalition's work to India and Europe, along with fundraising, client development, as well as the development of a benefit cost analytic engine and carbon credit funding. In his free time, which he has a little bit of, he's also managed to author 2 books, one a volume of poetry called Going, and the other on decarbonizing cities called Greening Our Built World: Costs, Benefits, and Strategies. His presentation tonight is about smart surfaces and how they can cost-effectively cool cities while slowing climate change. We'll have some time at the end of his presentation for questions, so please put them in the Q&A tab in the icon Q&A, which you have at the bottom of your screen. And afterwards, after we finish with Q&A and Greg takes off, we're going to have a 15-minute action party hosted by Climate Action Now. I hope you will stay on for that as well. Please do. So, Greg, thanks for being with us tonight, and please take it from here. And you're on mute.
You're gonna wish I, you're gonna wish I was on mute. So, sorry, the best part was up front, me being on mute. It's a pretty small group. I'm gonna go through stuff pretty quickly. Stop me at any point, ask questions. It's really the conversations and Q&As I think the most interesting. Um, so, so climate change is happening, and um, I think part of the problem with climate change is it's a bit overwhelming and it's hard to motivate change. If I'm a city, one of our cities, like a Dallas, big city, if Dallas goes to zero on its carbon emissions, its contribution to climate change, it changes global CO2 emissions by about 1/100th of 1%. So getting a city to change its emissions profile cannot rest on goodwill. It's got to rest on solving real problems of real people that cities are committed to. And what's great about this work, which is changing surfaces, is it solves a lot of problems. So first of all, in the news today, heat, um, the surfaces that we choose to handle these 2 gifts of God, sun and rain, the surfaces we choose to put on our cities and our suburbs makes our cities much hotter and more impervious, so more flooding, more mold. Um, and there's been billions of dollars of grant money have gone into helping cities solve for this. So you have subsidies and grants that go to green roofs and funding for trees and for reflective surfaces and for sidewalks. And at the end of it, cities kind of go back to lowest first cost, which is dark and impervious, mostly pavement, sort of the dark oil-based materials that covers our roads and parking lots. So I got frustrated with this. I'd been involved in the green building movement. I did the first rigorous comprehensive study of benefits and costs of green buildings, was involved in the early design charrettes for a green building standard called LEED. It's hired by the World Bank to guide them in creating their own green standard, which is now used in a lot of countries. Um, and so I had some experience with infrastructure and making infrastructure green. And I became frustrated because it was really hard to get cities to almost force cities to think about all their surfaces. You have 8 or 9 departments that deal with different surfaces in cities. And the term smart surfaces is a way to alliteratively, boringly, but succinctly describe surfaces that are horizontal, that face the sun, that face the rain. And so I created a coalition and launched this about 7 years ago. Um, didn't pay myself for some years until it got going. It's unusual because it's a coalition. So normally a group like NRDC, which I worked for in DC many years ago, they will look at an issue like climate that's expanding and they'll just expand with it. They'll grow and they'll do everything. They'll do oceans, they'll do forests, they'll do everything. They'll do agriculture. And the intent of the Smart Surface Coalition is just to do smart surface. It's all we do. And at this point, we do it better than anybody else. And I'm going to now share a couple of slides and just walk through them that I think you'll find. Well, actually, this is our website. I put in the chat our website if you want to go to it. It's a lot of materials. While we're on here, these surfaces, that's a conventional city. So the difference between what's on the left and the right of your screen, the right of your screen, you see green roofs. You see relatively reflective surfaces and photovoltaics on these surfaces. The parking lots have been converted. They're a bit lighter in color. They've got green trenches around, so you're managing all the water that comes off of the parking lots. So they're not radically different, but the one on the left is probably 10 degrees hotter, 12 degrees hotter in the summer, and causes an enormous amount of water runoff that then has to be processed through wastewater treatment. The one on the right captures a lot of that water and puts it into the ground. You're recharging the water tables. And because it's cooler, more people can be outside. And because it's cooler, you use less air conditioning. So for every degree Fahrenheit you can reduce a city's temperature, you're cutting your air conditioning by about 5%. So so that really matters to people. You cool a city 6 degrees, it's 30% plus. It's 1/3 reduction in your electricity bills. So I'm now going to switch to a different deck if it allows me to do so. So let's go back and make sure that this deck is open. So that's open. And we're now going to try to access it. And here we are. So smart surfaces. So I mentioned it's a coalition, and this is unusual. And so in order for cities to transform themselves, they are going to, that's most likely to happen if they're dealing with a set of organizations they know and trust. So my steering committee, I have the person who runs the American Public Health Association, person who runs the American Lung Association. We've been funding original research at the School of Public Health at Harvard, one of the top public health schools in the country. So we really, when we talk about health, people like, who cares? But when these institutions talk about health, people know and trust them. Similarly, National League of Cities, African American Mayors Association represent a lot of mayors and have for a long time. So when we talk to mayors, they're like, who are you? But the National League of Cities and the American African American Mayors Association, they know who they are, right? So when you build a coalition, you're bringing to bear the existing expertise and standing of a large range of organizations. And that's what this coalition does. So I was fortunate in raising money, about 15 million so far. A lot of that money has gone to pay for the time of our partners. So we typically have 12 or 14 partners working on projects. So let me just take a step back. So smart surfaces are reflective, porous, green, solar photovoltaics. I have solar on my roof for 12 years, and um, trees. And often you integrate these two. So this solar on the bottom right, because it's on a green roof, the grass under it grows better. There's less direct sunlight. There's less effort to water it. And because it's grass and cooler, it doesn't radiate heat. So the temperature of the solar is lower, which means it generates more power. And also, when you're installing it together. So your capital costs and labor costs actually come down. So when you integrate these smart solutions, you're solving some problems. So this is one example. When I came down to work in the Clinton administration, I bought a row house on Capitol Hill. That on the left was my roof, 175 degrees. So it was so hot I had to move from the third floor bedroom down to the second floor in the summer. And I got fed up with it. So I went up on the roof and my feet were baking. So I researched this and I bought a 5 gallon bucket of paint, swept the roof, and then rolled out this reflective surface. And then I could stay on my third floor. So the incoming sunlight does one of two things. This is universally true. It's either reflected back up, much of that leaving the atmosphere going into space, which is global cooling, or it's absorbed. And if it's absorbed in a building, some of that heat is going to heat up the building, like my bedroom, and some of it's going to heat up the neighborhood. And that's called the urban heat island effect. So one of the things we're doing in cities is we're changing their surface to make it much more reflective, as well as more porous, as well as greener. Um, so as I mentioned, cities are not that motivated by climate, but they are enthusiastic about solving real problems. Higher electricity bills, losing tourism because of heat, outdoor worker, the costs of outdoor workers were hired by the San Francisco airport because there are 10,000 outdoor workers who really suffer in the heat. So they're trying to figure out how to cool those people. And the way to do it is to change the surfaces. So that's what they hired us for. So this is kind of what it looks like. These are partners that will integrate. So the World WRI, you've probably heard of it. It's a couple thousand person NGO, does everything. It shouldn't do everything. It should concentrate on what it's good at, but it does everything. But they're really good on satellite monitoring, and we pay for them and integrate their work. And then we integrate in work out of Lawrence Berkeley National Lab to do heat modeling. We're the only group that does those two things together. And Harvard, I mentioned, we fund their research, so that's important on health. National League of Cities, we talked about Trust for Public Lands, does a lot of work in greening schools. American Public Health Association, we talked about. There's a whole group. So Columbia University, we pay for a lawyer, the Sabin Center, who can then help cities solve legal problems around adoption of smart surface. So you've got multiple entities that we integrate and fund and manage, doing first satellite mapping, integrated heat mapping, micrometeorological modeling, really understanding the characteristics of surfaces and the layers and what are the implications for health. Benefit cost analysis, we can cost justify it. It can scale education, training, city policy, and then design and implementation. So I'll give you one example. So our cities have adopted about 20 measures, citywide measures so far, with another 25 or 30 under development. One of them in Atlanta, we worked with them for a year and a half. They adopted a bill last year. It's the most aggressive and comprehensive cool roofing bill in the world. Requires all their roofs, new and retrofit, all buildings to become much more reflective. It'll triple the reflectivity of commercial roofs. So the payback is really fast. It's like under a year because these products, the cost premium is either very low or zero. It'll cut electricity bills about $300 million, about $6,000 a person over a 25-year period. Large health benefits, couple degrees cooling up to 6 degrees in some neighborhoods, and it's 3.6 million tons of CO2 reduction equivalent, which is coming from a couple things. You're bouncing light back into space, literally leaving the atmosphere. That heat's no longer available to heat up the building in the city. So your air conditioning bills come down. So you're using less electricity, you're burning less fossil fuels. So this is one example of 20 citywide implementation. And because we work with a cohort of cities, they're learning from each other and competing with each other. So the mayors really like this. One of our cities is Boston. They like it because we help them solve a bunch of problems. I would say the team is very motivated by climate change. We don't lead with that. We lead with lower electricity bills, protecting outdoor workers, competitiveness, saving money, protecting the tourism industry, protecting outdoor athletes. And then we get to environment, equity, and climate change, all things which yeah. So this is, I think it's becoming with the organizations we work in the cities, I think they would agree with this sentiment. So this is Dr. Benjamin. Smart Surf Strategies is now clearly the most effective urban cooling health and resilience program anywhere. We started working in India, MacArthur Foundation funding. We brought on board the former deputy mayor of Paris and the woman who was the past deputy mayor of London for energy and environment is just joined our advisory board, and we're working with her on trying to do this stuff for London. So for our 10 cities, just the 10 cities, so it's only 9 million people, 2.5 to 5 degrees cooling, substantial electricity bill reductions, large health benefits. These disproportionately accrue in low-income areas. If you think of a low-income community, probably not a lot of trees, probably a lot of hard tops. It's really hot, a lot of radiant heat, poor air quality because heat drives ozone, low level smog. We've locked in, I would say, over 50 million tons of CO2 reduction and offset. By the end of next year, we'll be at 100 million tons. So we also then do the larger metro areas, which are about 10 times as large with 2.5 times the population. And we're now helping those adjacent areas adopt these strategies. Part of coordinating much more aggressive city requirements for performance is you can create market demand. And as demand goes up, volume goes up, price comes down. As price comes down, you get bigger adoption. More adoption means volume goes up, price comes down again. So there's this kind of active dimension. Yeah, and so we kind of talked about this is sort of what we've mapped with our cities and what we're working on 3 degrees average city cooling up to 6 degrees. We talked about the electricity saving stormwater. We can cut flooding about half, which reduces by 75% the cost of flooding. One of our cities in Baltimore, half of low-income homes have been flooded. It's got mold problems, huge respiratory impacts. So climate mitigation, adaptation, public health, protecting jobs and economies, addressing unequal heat. From a climate perspective, which you guys are interested in, you're focused on, I think, this is both mitigation and adaptation. It's very low cost. So the mitigation, it comes through 4 ways. Reflectivity, we talked about increasing albedo, the measure of reflectivity, which goes from 0 to 1. 1's a mirror, 0's a black hole, right? So dark roof is 0.1, very reflective roof is 0.8. Tree planting, which obviously is increasing, and then we do more bioswales and tree trenches and that kind of stuff. So there's some sequestration there. Decreased AC use. Why? Because temperatures come down. You're also shading the roof. You're not getting the heat gain into the building, and then solar panels. So the ones in dark we've finished working with or we're still working with. So these are really 11 cities that have adopted smart surfaces very broadly. 20 more cities have come to us and say, hey, we really like this. So one of the things I'm going to ask you to do, you guys to do it, if you like what we're doing and think it's useful, is if you know anybody in the foundation that funds city level work, we'd love to get funded to do this. We have to raise about $700,000 per city to do this work. It's 3 years of very intensive work. including subcontracting to some of the contractors and partners we talked about. It's very technical. So it's great because if we raise money for these 20 cities, that's another 75 million people with the 30 that we're already changing service for. That's 100 million. That's 40% of the urban population. We think at that point in 2032, we cross a tipping point and this becomes the urban design norm. So you might ask how big an impact in terms of climate are these strategies globally? It's 100 to 200 gigatons. So about 4 to 5 years of global CO2 total emissions, including methane and everything else. So it's pretty big. I mean, it's sort of the order of electric vehicles. But it also has this incredibly important aspect of making cities cooler. So if you think about a hot city, 3 times as much of that heat is from bad surface choices, 3 times as much as from climate change. So climate change is about 2 degrees Fahrenheit of heat today that wasn't there 100 years ago. Cities are 5 to 10 degrees hotter because of the urban heat island. So it's really much larger than global warming as a determinant of urban heat. So this is kind of where we're going next. I'm busy trying to raise money for this. If you guys want to send me a check for 20 million, I can put my bank account information. I can see Mark's already signing up for 10 million. Do I see someone for the other 10? Francis, you're looking very pro. Oh, Jen's raised her hand. Jen, you're good for 10. Great. We're good to go. Thank you, guys. It's been such a pleasure talking with you. So anyway, this is where we want to go with this, right? We want to take our 10 cities, 30 million. We want to add another 20 big cities. And I'll show you, you saw the map earlier. So it's across the country. A lot of Midwestern cities now really getting keen to do urban cooling. So that's it. The rest of these are sort of technical. You can see here, for example, how income maps onto heat. The micrometeorological modeling allows you to look at redlining and heat, very high correlations. That's structural, racial inequality. It still blights our cities today. You can see an example. These are red line tracks, much hotter, more impervious. Temperatures can be much higher, 10 or 15 degrees higher. More AC. How does AC work? AC works as you're plugging in an air conditioning unit into your window. Generally, that's how you retrofit. That's going to dump 3 times as much heat outside as cooling inside. So we've all been to Paris, right? Not Paris, Texas, Paris, France. Not very air conditioned. That operating air conditioning in Paris adds 2 degrees centigrade to the city's heat on a multi-day heat event. In other words, it's the cause of most heat deaths, air conditioning heat, because a lot of people don't have air conditioning, or the air conditioning fails, or they forgot to pay their electricity bills, or they can't afford to, or whatever, right? So we can't solve urban heat through AC. Flooding, we talked about the work we do, big impact on water reduction. These are our sources, our data sources, satellite data sources. So a lot of different satellite sources to get highly detailed, technically accurate mapping of an entire city. These are some of the tools we built. I won't go into details. I'm happy to talk about it. We try and communicate. So these are templates. So if I'm in a community, you can generate analysis specific to your community. What's the heat? What's the albedo? What's the flooding risk? What are the intervention opportunities? How cost effective are they? All that kind of stuff. Some more examples of adoption. More examples. We have a free, something called the Peer Learning Networks, more than 100 cities mapped here, participate in that. We're basically providing free training. Some Canadian, European cities have joined. So if you know of a city that's interested, they're, welcome to join. Another 60 cities have joined a different group that we manage called the Cool Roadways Partnership. It's just about resurfacing dark surfaces, so changing the surface attributes of parking lots and roads, making them more reflective, more porous, and more shaded. This is sort of where we are with our cohort of cities in terms of adoption. So we start with a satellite mapping on the left, benefit cost analysis, go all the way through to adoption. Doing this now metro area. You can see the last column on that right, which is to get about 10 times as big as the city in terms of area and 2.5 times the population. So these are kind of the benefits at full city adoption, starting tens of billions of dollars. Um, Low income electricity bills are a big problem. They represent up to 15% of their disposable income as opposed to the wealthy. So when you reduce electricity bills disproportionately in low income, you're really helping to solve for some of the big equity related financial. Um, so this would be if you do the full metro areas, which we're working on now, you get to about 300 million tons of CO2 reduction and offsets. So it's getting close to a third of a gigaton. So it's really pretty substantial. This is just for our existing cohort. Um, and let's see if there's anything else on the last thing this is just, we have been fortunate to raise money to pay for grants to African American churches in 6 of the cities we work in. And it pays for them to create community gardens. So it's about 5,000 pounds of green produce per acre. And it's just a sort of wonderful because these communities, they get their hands in the soil, and it's a sense of engagement, strengthening communities, strengthening bonds, physiological well-being, right? All of those sort of soft social things that determine loneliness, physical activity, depression. So it's really hard to quantify that. We're trying. We're the best group quantifying this stuff out there. We work with a lot of partners and fund researchers and stuff. So anyway, that's a bit of our story. So I can see my bank account actually has moved in a depressingly small amount. It's actually, I see there's a withdrawal of $8.30. So I don't know who did that, but please stop doing that. If you want to send the 20 million, that's great. But alternatively, if you know anybody at the city level or in a foundation that's like, this is a way to put our city on a different trajectory to making it, cooler as the world gets hotter, more resilient, more equitable. So that's it. What questions have you guys got for me?
Okay, Greg, thank you, thank you very much. You covered a lot of territory with a great deal of detail on things, and I think raised a lot of questions. Certainly in my mind, there are a couple of questions I see here already that have come through. One very straightforward one from John is, do you have a recommendation on what chemicals should be in a white reflective paint for asphalt shingles? Somebody maybe getting ready to paint their roof.
Great question. So one of our partners is called the U.S. Cool Roof Rating Council. It's California-based, not-for-profit. And our partners, which I showed on the first slide, include some of the biggest paint and roofing manufacturers in the world. So GAF is a partner, largest North American roofing manufacturer. They will take their product and submit it to the U.S. Cool Roof Rating Council to rate it in terms of performance. So we only have our cities specify products that have independently rated for performance. And those include stability questions so you don't get leaching and off-gassing. So if you want to do it, you go to the U.S. Cool Roof Rating Council. There's a products page, and you can put in, one thing I do is I just put in, I'd like to have a reflectivity or an albedo of 0.7. What are the options? And then you can see all the options. You can click on those to find the products. And then you can shop around for a local supplier and say, I want a product with an albedo that's X. And they may not, the local seller may not know. So you may have to specify. You might want to say, these are 4 products that have a 3-year rating of 0.7 or better. If it's a commercial roof, and I'm going to buy one of those. Let's take a look at the price.
Just a quick follow up on that. I mean, what do you think about individuals taking this on their own, painting their roofs? Is that sort of part of the process, or a bit of a drop in the bucket in terms of the big picture that you've painted?
It's great. I mean, we have a Tesla powered from our roof. It's in a driveway, and the car got really hot, so I went out and I bought a 28 by 16-foot white tarp, and I suspend it over the car. And I
Okay.
did the math on it because you're bouncing more light back up. That's about half a ton of CO2
Well,
over 10 years. And also means the car doesn't consume a lot of electricity cooling down. So that's probably even more. So that's probably a ton and a half. So yeah, absolutely. Residential roof options are more limited than commercial, meaning low slope. Low slope, you should be getting and that 3-year albedo of 0.7. There's dozens and dozens of products out there from major manufacturers that hit that objective. So one of the things we do at cities is we're like, okay, we need to have 20 different products from 8 manufacturers that can deliver over whatever standard we're helping them set. So there's multiple vendors, multiple competition, prices down, there's local manufacturing availability. But yeah, I mean, I think, and if for kids and grandkids, nephews, to see their adults in their lives that they care about doing things is incredibly reassuring because
yeah.
they're like the adults I know and trust are not giving up. They're doing something about it.
Okay, great.
I've
So I've
gotten
been,
4 of my neighbors to buy solar, by the way. It's taken me about 15 years, but it's,
good for you.
patience, right?
Good work. Good work. As I have a question here and a comment from Frances. Last week, she said she was talking with a nurse who works on climate change. Said that she had been to a presentation that said that cool surfaces could cause problems with people's eyes, but she didn't remember why or how. Do you know what she's talking about? What that
Yeah, I
concern might
do.
be?
It's glare. So, like my shirt, if that was on the ground, you might look at it and go, that's kind of bright. But and if you look at a commercial, like if you fly, when I fly, I look down and you'll see roofs that are quite reflective. So you wouldn't really want to be walking on a road that's really, really bright because then you get glare. But the surface glare is going to come from a mirror, but you're not going to get a mirror on a road. You're going to get something that's diffuse, right? It spreads light in different directions. Typically, roads that are reflective will get to a reflectivity of 0.35, which is kind of roughly what a tennis court is. It's roughly what concrete is. Not a problem. So you want, and then the sort of related argument against this, and there's a group called the dark roofing industry. We've labeled them as such. They try and fight what we do. And we've won some battles with them and lost some battles, but we're gearing up to really take them down. Um, they argue that reflective roofs don't work, which is just a preposterous argument. Um, and so you just have to, you know, you have to take these arguments one at a time, and it's just very helpful to have, leading health national science organizations on your side to make the case. And so when we're able to make the case, we win. They have lobbyists, which we don't have. So, but anyway, so I'm kind of wandering around a bit. I think the answer is a commercial roof can be bright enough that it causes glare, but the options you have for parking and roads get you to a zero point 0.3 or zero point 0.35 albedo. And actually, because there's a bit more bounce light, you have higher visibility. So you see towns putting in reflective roads and then reducing the amount of artificial lighting, the big overhead street lamps, because they don't need as much light because you have higher visibility. So it's actually good for safety because you're not going to put like a mirror on a road. You're just going to have something that absorbs a bit less light,
Right.
bounces a bit, diffracted light back, gives you better visibility, better acuity. So there are these kind of myths that are promoted by groups that oppose the stuff, and let alone this administration, which is so radically anti-science and anti-common sense.
Yeah. Just a quick follow up on that. In terms of the, I guess is it the shingle manufacturers who are in particular concerned about this, and are there some that are actually turning to more reflective materials, and others that are pushing back? How's that going?
Um, so if you go into a Home Depot and you're going to re-roof your doghouse, you're going to be buying something that's about this long, that's got 4 panels, and it's paper and oil, bottom of the barrel oil products, and it'll have tiny little pieces of stone on it, and that's your sort of standard roof for residential. Some parts of the country it's tile. Some places you have standing seam metal, but the reflectivity options for residential roofs are really very poor.
Mm.
The average commercial roof absorbs 80% of the sunlight. Average residential roof absorbs 85%. So it's a big, big hit on electricity bills. So the thing to do is, when you specify, you want to ask them what the albedo is, what's the reflectivity.
Mhm.
And if they don't know, then you shouldn't buy them. They should know.
Yeah.
You would, for a residential roof, probably want to be at about a 0.22. So it's about a 40% increase over average. And we're trying to create a market so that these big companies invest to get residential roofs that reflect
Yeah.
60% of the
Yeah.
20 or 25.
Yeah. Oh, great. So here's a question from Leslie. When you approach a city, do you focus first on roofs and then on streets and sidewalks? How do you make
We
street
do the whole
surfaces?
thing. We
You do
do
okay.
everything. We say, I mean, we will not work with the city unless we have a letter of commitment from the mayor.
Okay.
And that
And
letter of commitment has to be, we're going to do it citywide.
okay.
Because
And how do you make
yeah.
street surfaces better for heat and water? What's
So if
this?
you, so
Yeah.
think about a parking lot, which is this big, flat, dark surface, wall to wall. So you got two problems with it. It absorbs all the sunlight. You don't want that. So you can paint it, you can resurface it. That can be visible or invisible. So there are coatings, they're called PTOs, that you can actually put on and it will double the reflectivity, won't change the color. A lot of the cities we work with resurface them. So they look gray, the kind of reflectivity of a tennis court. So you have 2.5 to 3 times the increase in reflectivity. So that deals with heat. And by the way, the surface of a dark parking lot will get to 165, 170 degrees in the summer. For this reflective, it's 140, which means less thermal expansion contraction, which means that your surfaces last longer, right? If it's a reflective surface. So now we've dealt with reflectivity. Now water. So where does the water go? You want the water to go into an adjacent feature, and it could be a tree trench, it could be a bioswale, it could be trees in the middle. You could put pavers around it that are sitting on gravel where the water flows through it. So there are a lot of technical options that are very cost effective
Hmm.
and allow for groundwater recharge, and means the city doesn't have, flooding. I mean, I swim in the Potomac. There's an island club I belong to up the river in Maryland. We had 400,000, 300,000, 300 million gallons of sewage go in because we have all these impervious surfaces. So you get a combination of rainwater and sewerage. Old systems can't handle it. So pervious surfaces in or around parking lots or roads, plus changing the surface, and that's an application in elastomeric, or there's a variety of products out there. And we have more than 60 cities working with us and learning from our work in this cool roadways partnership. We have all these materials on our website, so go to our website. One more question.
Yeah. So Susan asks, what about cold climate cities where dark surfaces help to retain heat in winter? Does that make light surfaces less appropriate as a year-round change?
Yeah, it's a great question. So if I'm in Sioux, South Dakota or Bismarck, probably wouldn't do reflective surfaces. So the thing about, so basically her point is a great one, which is in the winter, you want that extra heat, And so what's the trade-off between not getting sunshine and heat in the winter versus getting it in the summer when you don't want it? Um, Winter days are shorter, as you know, a lot shorter, about 50% shorter. The sunlight is at a much lower angle. So sunlight in the summer is like this, and the winter it's like this. And because it's low angle, the amount of energy in it, the heat in it is much, much less. Winters are also more cloudy. They're about 50% more cloudy. So when you combine those three, the heat gain that you want in the winter is about 1/10 of the heat gain that you want to avoid in the summer. And then if you're in a place like Denver, which is one of the cities where, the fastest to come work with them, you also get snow. If there's snow in the winter, doesn't matter what the color of the roof is. So it's a great point, and it means that you know we make sure we only work in cities where the summer cooling benefits greatly outweigh the losses in the winter because you're not getting heat because you've got a lighter colored roof. So I hope that answers your questions. Seriously, if you know anybody in a foundations in your cities that you're in or around that is interested in putting their city on a different direction in terms of climate and health and equity, heat and flooding, shoot me an email and let me know, do an introduction.
Okay. Okay. So by hearing Greg, this, we've reached about the end of our time with you. Is that? Do you
Yeah,
have any?
yeah.
Yeah, that's okay. That's great. This has been extraordinary, and from my perspective, I have learned extraordinary amount. I didn't even know Boston was on your radar. That's fantastic to know, and I've got to do some follow up on that for sure. Your amount and depth of technical knowledge, in addition to your capacity to run an organization, are just above and beyond. So we really
Above and
appreciate
beyond
you.
what? Alcohol use. It's a little unclear where you're going with this.
I think you look like a candidate for a MacArthur Award if you haven't had one already.
Okay. If you know anybody in the MacArthur Foundation,
we'll,
second request.
okay,
And I
we'll,
just,
we'll we'll work on that. But so on behalf of ECA and our whole audience, I want to really thank you, Greg, for being with us tonight, for your extraordinary work on mitigating climate change, and through your efforts to promote smart surfaces. It's really remarkable, and I'm sure a lot of us will be tuning into your website, checking things out, trying to learn a lot more, and maybe move some more cities into your zone, and looking for those millions of dollars that you need if we can.
I have one more thing, which is, let me just pull it up. So there was a
Sure.
really nice article that came out from a guy named John Elkington, who 40 years ago came up with the term triple bottom line. And he just posted a really wonderful kind of overview. It includes some Q and A's that I think do a really nice job summarizing. So if you just give me a minute, let
Yeah,
me let me
take your
find
time.
that. Let me
Yeah,
find that one.
it's such a complex topic in so many different ways. So anything that can kind of summarize and focus for us, I think, would be extremely helpful. So I think a lot of us are going to want to follow up with this.
It's interesting you say it's complex because I think that is exactly true. But I also think there's this broad perception. It's like, oh, it's just roofs and trees and, it's pretty simple. All right. So what I just put in is um, a several page, more detailed
Okay,
description of what we do. And please post it and repost it. And love to get some attention because it answers so many of the questions that we get and
great,
are constantly sort of, trying
fantastic.
to educate on.
Yeah, that's great. Well, listen, carry on. You've got a
You
lot
guys,
going on.
I'm
Take
the same age as you guys, and I just, when you have children and grandchildren and they see you acting the same, they may not tell you this, but you give them a sense of optimism because if adults give up on this stuff, they're going to give up on it too.
oh,
So
absolutely.
what you do is super important. Thank you for the time. It's great to meet you all.
Very great. Take care, Greg. It's been good. Very much.
Good night. I'm
Thanks.
glad you enjoyed it. Good
Thanks,
All
night.
right.
Greg. And
Thank
everybody, I
you.
just want to ask everybody to stay on because we are going to do an action party. So our action party should get started in just a few minutes. Our host of our action party generally joins us at the end of the call, and so we're trying to get her on a few minutes early since Greg ended just a few minutes early with us. But we've got a few of our leadership team here on the call, so I'm going to put a little bit of us on the spot here. And just, does anybody have any thoughts about how we sort of translate everything that we just got from Greg into our advocacy efforts? How can we sort of take this back to our communities? And anybody have any thoughts about how we might be able to do that? Leslie, I see your hand, and then Francis. How about after Leslie?
Well, I think it's educational because for those of us who haven't dealt with roofs on buildings, I mean, I know when I walk on the Capitol Crescent Trail, when the trail goes under an overpass, the temperature drops 10 degrees. That is the cool there. And so I think helping people understand both the change in the real feel of the temperature and the electricity savings are really critical. And I think that he's got great materials, and I'm sure we can use them.
Yeah.
Oh, Francis, go ahead.
I think most of us live in areas where, the excess heat in the summer is a bigger issue than the cold in the winter. Although even if you live in an area which has really cold winters, unless it's so cold that you can't grow deciduous trees, you can still do some of these things with trees that are going to lose their leaves in the winter and let you get more sunlight. Um, but for the rest of us, there are certainly things that are cities can do. I'm thinking about counties because I actually live in an area that is considered a census-defined place, even though it has an urban district, which is kind of bizarre. Um, so, but local government can do kind of two sets of things. They can set rules and incentives for building owners that, like in Washington, D.C., not far from here, they have um, a program for green and cool roofs. And I haven't looked at that in great detail. I actually found out about it when I took my cat to the vet. And they had a big sign at the veterinary hospital about what they were doing with their green roof. But I think if you're building a new building, or if you're doing a big renovation on an existing building in DC, you have to, be making some provisions for this. And there are things that private homeowners, business building owners can do, either because they're required to, or because there are incentives to do that, or just because of education. I mean, nobody really wants their building to be hugely energy inefficient and waste a lot of money. So sometimes all it really takes is just the education to help people understand what are cost-effective things they can do. But beyond that, there are lots of things that belong to the city or the county in terms of the pavement that we use, where we plant our trees, how we do our stormwater, and those sorts of things. So really paying attention to those things, I think, can make a huge difference. And um, getting an idea where your city or county is on that, where are the blind spots or the things they haven't gotten to yet, and advocating that they take the next step, if they have the money, or if you know one of these foundations that Greg was talking about, that can help them get the money. And for us, $700,000 is a lot of money. For a foundation or for some cities, it's not pocket change, but it's not that much. So a lot of these things are doable.
Mm-hmm. And I think, I mean, in Massachusetts, like I think in many states, I mean, we periodically generate and revise our clean energy and climate plan. And the reality is, if I think about all the major sectors that they address there, and look at cost effectiveness and amount of greenhouse gas emissions that can be reduced for buildings, for transportation, through natural solutions. I don't see on that plan anything about smart surfaces. Now, so Boston has kind of jumped in, and they're doing something. But what I found so quite extraordinary about what Greg was talking about is all of the research and background and data that they seem to have accumulated, and they're really into cost effectiveness and measuring the amounts of greenhouse gas equivalent reduction that can be achieved in addition to cooling cities. Now, that really should be rolled into a statewide clean energy and climate plan, which drives policy to create incentives and direct state dollars and tax dollars into the proper places for this. And so I'm like, suddenly, I mean, I had not thought about this at all, and I didn't know there was this kind of data out there. So I'm going to sort of dig into this and take a look to see if there is a way in which the folks that are at the state level might have a lot to learn. I mean, it's usually, friends, about education and bringing to bear, especially some of this data that they have on cost, benefit, effectiveness, and greenhouse gas reduction. I mean, that's the way to drive this in Massachusetts.
Leslie.
Yeah, I mean, the health impacts of heat in urban areas on young children, on elderly people like ourselves, because we're far more, and I remember hearing during the heat that I think people falling on the street were getting first, second degree burns on their skin if they fell down because of the heat there. So I think that there is some strong, citizen health messaging that could be used in advocating with the city councilors and others and folks who could help bring this about. Thanks.
Mark, I think you have your hand up.
Yeah, I saw Greg had shown a map, and Tucson, where I live, was one of the cities that was on there, I think, for the future. And I know somebody on here is from Phoenix that's even hotter than Tucson. And I think what I might be able to do in terms of just local stuff is go to our city and talk to somebody in capital projects and see what they know about this, where it is, where the funding is, and things like that. See if they may need help. And I think this is one of those things where, particularly the cities that are hottest, once they start doing this and they can report the benefits of it.
Mhm.
He talked about a tipping point. Greg talked about a tipping point, and I think he was talking about in terms of net zero, but I think just in terms of getting more and more cities to appreciate this and to want to get on board, I think that could be a tipping point too. So, again, the lowdown for me, I think, would be to go to my city government, find out who's in capital projects, and see where they are with this process.
Excellent. Thank you, Mark. Kaylee, our guest, Greg, ended a little bit early. And so I think let's go ahead and get started with Action Party and we can get things kicked off and then we could continue to just sort of have this discussion and this banter about this conversation that we heard tonight while we're taking actions in addition to some of the actions that you tell us about. So why don't you go ahead and get us started?
Yeah. As always, thanks so much for having me on for yet another national call. I always look forward to getting to be a part of these. My name is Kaylee Beam. I'm Director of Content at Climate Action Now, and I have many responsibilities, but one of them is working with a wonderful team of volunteers to put together the actions like the ones you'll be taking tonight. So without further ado, let me share my screen and get us all started on action taking. So you should be seeing it shortly if you aren't already. And if you've heard me say this all before, you can just ignore me and get to work. But if this is your first time taking action with us at one of these mini action parties, this is our goal tracker. On the left side, we have this lovely globe, which will fill in and iterate as we take action here tonight. And just like the last few national calls, the QR code and link will take you to an action carousel on the ECA website rather than the CAN app. So if you want to access the carousel on your computers, feel free to type in the short link under the QR code or click on it in the chat, which I can drop it in really quick. Give me 1 second. All right. Here we go. Oh, Paloma beat me to it. So the link is in the chat already. So feel free to do that if you'd like to access the carousel on your computers. If you prefer to use your phone or tablet, just point your camera at the QR code box, wait for the little pop-up to appear, and tap on it to get to the carousel. If you've never used the carousel before, you'll have to put in some basic information to take action, like your name, address, email, and personalized message. And if you have an app account, but this is your first time using the carousel, don't worry, you will not have to start from scratch. The carousel should recognize your email and prompt you to enter a verification code. And once you put all that in, you should be golden, and it will transfer your progress from the app to the carousel. And if you're an app user, you can still access tonight's campaign through the Campaigns tab in the CAN app. So feel free to get started. Our goal is 100 actions. We've got actions focused on everything from urban canopy and tree equity to cool roofs and permeable pavement. So feel free to, they're all heat related, so feel free to just scroll through and see what you find. Let's do our best to reach our goal.
I'm getting myself set up to take some actions this evening. I hope everybody is joining us and taking some actions. I love the Climate Action Now app. It just makes it so easy for us to get actions in and do them together and make an impact from the comfort of our own homes, from while we're waiting at the bus stop, while we're waiting at the dentist office, all of these different places that we can take 5 minutes and or 15 minutes like we're going to do today and
Yeah.
act.
And for these action parties, we always put together, a more curated list of actions to sort of match the discussion of the evening. But, on the Climate Action Now app, you'll find such a wide range of topic areas, so many different environmental and climate issues you can really center your advocacy around. And so really is a great platform if you're just getting into it.
And all of our actions that we take together, each time one of us takes an action, that number gets added in with a whole bunch of other people. And so all of a sudden that member of Congress is getting a number of messages in their inbox telling them that this is an important issue. And there isn't a time that has been more important than this one right now. It's important that uh, elected officials know what voters want and that where our voter priorities are. And this is the way that we can do it. We can tell them by taking simple actions, these easy sign-on actions where we can customize the message however we like, but all we have to do is add our name to them and hit send. Makes it so easy to just amplify your voice and your effort in a few minutes, and make a big impact. I know that we often don't think that these types of things make an impact, but our elected officials need to know what voters care about. And this is a very effective way to let them know what we care about. Even if it becomes a tick mark on a sheet, those tally up to impact somewhere in the future when it comes to decision making. Does anybody want to talk about any of the actions they've taken? Any of our team here, education team on the call tonight? Have you taken any?
I just sent one to tell our reps to do cool roofs. Talk about something cool. We just heard about it and now we're asking them to do it.
Yeah, and depending on where you live, you might have access to some local actions with local targets tonight. So you might be able to contact your city councilor and mayor. That functionality is, we use a third party software to do that. So not everyone's city is in the database, but if you see those local actions, then you're in one of those cities. So you have that opportunity to contact your local officials too.
That's great.
And I'm on my fourth or fifth and telling state leaders to accelerate solar power build outs in Arizona. So that's what I'm doing as we speak.
Very
Yeah,
important issue in Arizona.
there was a great article, I think it was in Canary Media, maybe, that was focused on how in the heat wave in early July, how it was thanks to kind of the clean energy buildout that had occurred and the offshore wind development that had happened there, and also solar power buildout as well, that they were able to kind of stay resilient and avoid kind of the worst case scenario, lots of blackouts and long outages. So advocating for clean energy is absolutely part of the extreme heat solution too.
And one of the other things I love about this app is the more you use the app and the more actions you take, you plant trees. Can you talk a little bit more about that, Kaylee?
Yeah, so our amazing tree planting partner is based in Kenya. Their name is the Earth Lungs Reforestation Foundation, and we collaborate with them so that when our users take actions, they're earning points toward the planting of real trees. And Earth Lungs is doing the planting, so they're working to restore mangrove forests in Kenya. And they're really great. The author of our Substack, Sam Maddie Coast, actually was able to go there and plant mangroves with them and just see their whole process. And it's, not just about, growing trees to be deforested, right? No, it's about like, how can we restore this important ecosystem in the long term, but also in a way that supports local communities too. So just their mission and model is really great. And it's, I think definitely one of the highlights of what we do is being able to partner with them and have, the actions that our users are taking every day kind of contribute to such incredible outcomes somewhere halfway across the world.
And I love that we're ticking up there in numbers. We're at 68. We do have a goal of 100, and I know we started our action party a little bit early, so we can end a little bit early, but maybe we go to 10 after and see if we can get to 100 actions in the next 7 minutes. We're at 71. That number is ticking up. I just earned a tree. I always love that. That makes me so excited.
Yeah, I think so far our community has planted over 600,000 trees together in partnership with Earthlung. So pretty incredible and growing every day.
600,000 trees. And how many actions total to decision makers have we all of can of the
Yeah. I actually just updated the numbers today, so let me get you the most up-to-date count. All right, so we have taken over 4,600,000 actions. So that includes articles you read, letters you're sending, petitions you're signing. In terms of just messages, so these are direct messages to our state, federal, and local officials, we are at 3,700,000. And that's just in the last 5 years, I think. So pretty incredible the impact we've been able to have. And I think it's thanks to organizations like ECA getting on board and kind of sharing the technology and promoting our platforms that's kind of helped us scale up our impact so much in such a short period of time.
Oh, I'm doing an action right now telling my state official about cool roofs.
I don't want to jinx us, but I think we're definitely going to hit 100 actions.
Getting very close.
Getting very close.
I'm about to add another one on cool roofs. Ooh, I think I got to be that 98 to turn to 99. That's always fun. All right, someone just helped
Great
us
work,
get to
everybody.
100. Good job. Well, we got 5 minutes left. I guess let's see how many more we can do in 5 minutes. We'll end 5 minutes early tonight since we started a few minutes early. So let's see what else we can get. I love the fireworks.
Yeah, the fireworks are always a highlight.
Tonight I'm even hearing firework sound. Is that?
That might be my typing. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
I was answering a question in the chat.
It sounded like firework sounds. It really had me fooled.
I thought my PC was about to quit on me.
It's just me providing real-time sound effects. It really adds some emphasis.
It's great to see a number of actions on plant-based eating. So I'm signing petition after petition, getting back to people and thanking people for taking action on plant-based eating. So
Awesome.
fantastic.
Yeah, once you finish tonight's recommended campaign, you'll basically have access to all the other actions in the Climate Action Now database. So you'll find anything, plant-based eating, tons of actions on clean energy, regenerative agriculture. The more it's there for you to discover. The more you scroll, the more you'll find.
I think it's wild that they want to put solar panels between railroad tracks. That's something I wouldn't have imagined.
Yeah, our Substack, the Daily Dose of Climate Hope, is always focused on what are some of these I don't know, a little bit far off, like very innovative solutions we might not have thought of. So you might find a lot of actions like that where you're like, oh, I'd never considered that as a possibility before, but there's some startup out there that's making it happen.
They've been going over our water canals, bringing water from the northern part of the state to the southern part of the state, and so that is happening.
Wow, look at us go tonight. 124. 3 minutes left. Let's see. Maybe we can make it to 150 in 3 minutes. Let's see.
I've done 45, so
Wow.
Incredible.
Roger, thank you so much for joining us tonight and being a special national call host,
Happy to be here.
a guest host for the evening. It's always nice to have a new face hosting our national calls.
Anytime.
And if there's anybody else out there that's ever interested in helping to bring in a guest speaker or host national call or anything like that, please get in touch with us. We are always looking for more volunteers for ECA's leadership team. There's no qualifications necessary. Everybody here is just average citizens concerned about climate change that want to make a difference, and that's really the only prerequisite that you bring to the table. Otherwise, everything is sort of learned as a collective with our shared knowledge. So we hope that you might join us and help host these events.
Yeah, Roger, thanks. Did a good job today, particularly given that we didn't know if our speaker was
You're right.
gonna be.
Showed up just on time. Just in time. Right.
Sometimes they make us sweat just a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, we're getting close to the end of the hour, and so thank you everybody for joining us tonight and for participating in this action hour or action party and national call. And we'll see you next month. Next month we'll have Danny Richter. He'll be talking to us about carbon pricing, and we'll have a lot of great information coming out of that. So we hope that you'll join us next month and for the next action party for that national call too.
Okay. All right. Thank you,
Good night,
Jen.
everybody.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Good night, all.